I'm really grateful to all the guys that put this on, and sorry, I get a little nervous. Anyway, I'm really passionate about this movement because I've struggled with mental health problems in my life, and I lost a sister to suicide a few years ago, and I'm completely convinced that she could have been saved if she hadn't gotten caught up in the mental health care system that we have going right now. If there was something else, possibly, probably psychedelics, pretty sure that wouldn't have went down. So this is what I'm doing about it, and I thank you all for helping. It's really important for our society, I think. So anyway, microdosing. I took a little bit, and it's been a lovely bike ride through Manhattan. Met at the Alice in Wonderland statue. It hasn't fixed my social anxiety evidently, but I'll keep working on it. Thank you.
You sounded beautiful. Awesome. And one of the, so there's a bunch of organizations that helps us pull this together today. Symposium is one of them, but also the Psychedelic Society of Brooklyn as well. The maps and everybody's really helpful. One of the favorite things that we like to do is storytelling events. Lectures and conferences are great, and you learn a lot from an hour-long slideshow. But when you get personal stories of people's actual experiences, whether it's from the old elder experts that we like to watch, or from among peers our own age, it's just constantly amazing to me how many different ways that these psychoactives can affect us. I mean, I've been collecting people's drug stories for 10 years. And about once a week, I still hear something that I just never would have guessed can happen from drugs, good or bad. And it's fascinating. And so I encourage you, if you have a story about your own experience, whether it be a psychedelic or an opiate or a pharmaceutical or any kind of drug experience that was very important to you, feel free to come up and share about that. As well, that's the psychedelics we see as the light side of what is happening in the world today. And it's the lightest light for potential healing. And the darkest dark is the war on drugs. And all the people in jail for altering their own consciences by whatever means it is that to you. So if you have any experiences about your own with the war on drugs that you'd like to share, and how you were a victim or you were personally affected by the atrocities of the war on drugs, please feel free to come up and share those stories as well. If that speaks to anybody, you'd like the microphone now. For those guys. Somebody has to break the...
I can share my story.
Yes, please. Great. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Nico. I'm originally from Colombia. I moved here in 2005 because my mother was a prosecutor in Colombia, prosecuting drug cases. She was always very interested in doing the right thing, although she wasn't. She thought fighting the drug war and the way she was doing it was the right way. But eventually she ended up with death threats where she was going to be killed if she wasn't going to give up to one of the cases that she was taking. So we moved out here for political asylum, and we have to basically sell everything and just move to the basement a little bit and get out from there. And it was a very important experience for us, just to stay together as a family and not give up. But also for me to realize what the government was doing and how my country especially was being affected. Millions of families being kidnapped, judges, journalists being assassinated for speaking against things like that. So, I ended up being more involved in it and trying to make a change. And, sorry. Thanks.
No, that was beautiful. A round of applause for his mother and that kind of work. Anyone else that want to share a story? Just look at those eyes. Just like when you offer people a joint, and they're always a little bit too nice to say yes. When you look at their eyes, you kind of see that person who really wants to.
I'll say something. So let me speak from my own perspective. I'm actually half and half. I'm Dutch Mexican. And growing up, I thought, wow, being Dutch, they have some really liberal policies, and it's so great that people are allowed to use cannabis in coffee shops. Little did I know that only a few years later, they would take away people's right to smoke. People who come from out of the country and want to enjoy what Holland had to offer. At this point, there have been so many coffee shops shut down, so many pot growers busted. It just happened on my mom's block just this past week. They found 300 plants inside of a house. They shut everything down. They took all the plants away. And little did I know that I'd be living in Washington, D.C., where DCMJ would write a public referendum to legalize cannabis. And right now in D.C., we've got the ability to grow 6 plants inside of our home, to carry up to 2 ounces on any person, to give away up to an ounce to anybody else who's 21. I mean, this is really revolutionary, what we've done in D.C. to reduce the amount of arrests that have happened in our city, to reduce the amount of stigma among cannabis users, and to increase the amount of trust between people and police, which I think is really important. The ability to say, if I need help and I need to go to a police officer, I shouldn't be fearing arrest for the smell of cannabis on my person, for having a little bit of weed in my pocket or a piece of paraphernalia. We no longer live under that type of tyranny. And I think that that's what we need, not just for the rest of this country, who imprisons more people than anywhere else in the world, but also around the world. So I'm really hoping that this conference going on inside is really going to rethink what the global policy is, stop imprisoning people who use drugs, who use cannabis, who medicate themselves, and who use it recreationally. This has got to stop, because this prison has never actually reformed anybody. It doesn't actually deter anybody from using drugs, and it may even cause PTSD, which will make you want to use drugs even more. And especially when we've got stuff like alcohol and tobacco that have killed people, that are very dangerous. People know that from firsthand. We allow people to use that. What is the sense of this? We've got to stop locking people up, and we've got to think a lot more holistically on how we can treat drugs as a public health issue and not as a criminal justice issue. Thank you.
Another round of applause also for helping to put together this cage, along with my friend Adam and others. As a really great way to protest. In fact, she was just telling me a story about how David Bronner of Bronner Soaps used this as a way to protest, and he was processing him inside this jail cell. And that's illegal to do, but because he was locked inside a jail cell, the cops couldn't get to him. And so it took a couple of hours for them to actually get inside. 3 hours until they could come and finally stop his illegal processing of this non-psychoactive weed that grows all over the ditches of Kentucky. And that's when he got arrested. So there's lots of different ways to protest, and you can get very creative and make it fun. Does anyone else want to tell a story about drug experience, the war on drugs, or the activism that might have led you here?
Hello, everybody. My name's Amanda. I'm the volunteer coordinator of DCMJ. Thank you all for coming out. I work heavily in cannabis activism, but I actually went to jail for charges related to LSD. And I was set up by somebody, and I was stupid and helped out somebody with what I consider to be a gift, and I sold it. And I was set up by the police, and they tracked me down through people who I considered to be my friends after I had left that style of life behind me. And they spent more money buying LSD from me than they charged me as a fine. They spent more money incarcerating me in jail than they had in finding more LSD. Or because I'm like a small little lady, they just use me as bait, basically, to, make a cop look good, maybe make it look like, oh, he's busted a girl for finding something at a party. for him. It's not really a way to actually do your job.